Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled people, where in today's episode, you'll hear about entitled neighbors destroying fences, tourist Karens causing trouble, and how OP deals with an entitled neighbor who repeatedly lets her dog crap on his lawn. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and do remember to hit that subscribe button for future tales. Okay, so this is a wild one that makes absolutely no sense to me, but my sister absolutely hates my guts right now for something I just can't understand how I did wrong. So my sister's leaving for vacation for 1 week, next week. She asked me to stay at her place, including nights, because she's worried about break-ins and if there's a flood, etc., as well as watering the plants. So I say, okay, fine. She does live close by, so I'll stay there. So I send her a text message agreeing to house sit. My sister then sends me a text back and tells me, okay, instead of charging you market rent, I'll charge you a bit less since you're my sister. Now I'm thinking, no, I have my own home, so why would I pay? So I responded with a question mark. And my sister responded by explaining that her comparable rental house, as she's the landlord, gets X amount a month in rent. So she divides the rent by 4 for 1 week, and she knocked $75 off. Now at this point, I'm thinking, yeah, no. So I told her she's free to hire a house sitter, or I can do it for free, but I'm not gonna pay to stay at her place if I already own a place of my own. So my sister's now upset with me because she has a mortgage to pay and she's losing out if I don't pay for the 2 weeks to live there. I told her that's not really my issue, and I refuse to house sit and pay to do so. I told her I'll house sit for free as a favor to you, or I'll stay at my place. Now, my partner's on my side, and so are most of my family members. But my sister's friends have sent me messages on Facebook and Instagram absolutely shredding me, saying things like, did you really think you'd get to stay somewhere for free? Nothing's free, and admonishing me as a leech. My sister's also part of a private landlord group on Facebook, and she sent me screenshots of people commenting on her post about me. There's so many people calling me entitled and saying things such as, where in the world would you expect to live somewhere for free? And that I should be grateful that she's charging below market rate. My sister tells me that she's crushed, that I refuse to help her, and she only trusts me to watch her place. So no Airbnbs to strangers, etc. So am I the a-hole? Okay, so myself and a lot of people agree that OP is not the a-hole in this. Am I missing something though? I've never heard of house sitting for someone and having to pay them. And I certainly wouldn't expect that from a family member. Like, guys, is that not totally absurd? So OP does come back with an update, and the update says, so she showed me the Facebook post, and she's not lying to people about the issue and twisting facts. She's literally telling them the full story. That she asked me for a favor, and I'm not asking her for a place to live. And yet, most of the comments are them mocking me for thinking that I can stay there for free. That house sitting is not a job, and that I should be helping my sister out. And if I stay there, I should be paying rent. I'm absolutely floored, and I don't know anymore. Am I actually the bad person here? So there you have it, folks. There are some people who side with OP's sister even after knowing the full story. But let me know what you guys think. I personally don't believe that OP should be paying her sister, and in my opinion, just stay home, OP, in the comfort of your own home. Let your sister figure it out. I live in Sweden. I used to work as a waiter at a restaurant. During my summer, my city gets a lot of tourists, mostly Germans, Norwegians, and Danes, but Brits and Americans aren't unheard of. So this day, I was waiting this American family of 3, a mother, father, and son, who was around 9 or 10 years old. Now, I immediately thought this was going to be a doozy because the mom immediately refers to me in English, and neither asked, do you speak English, in either English or Swedish? So with that said, a lot of us do speak English. I think the number sits around 94 or 95%, but it's still polite to ask, as there's a few who don't. They ordered their drinks and food, and I made my way back to the kitchen to give them the order. On the way back, I brought them their utensils. We also have these paper sheets with riddles, mazes, and animals to color for the children who visit us, together with some crayons. Now, the riddles and wordplays are obviously in Swedish, but foreign kids can still enjoy the maze and coloring of the animals. I gave the kid the sheets, explained to him that while he won't understand the riddles, he can still have fun with the rest. And he seemed happy to have something to do, and I left to wait on the other tables. Now, this is where the fun, or should I say entitlement, begins. The mother, who I find out was a Karen, demands me come back to their table. So I go there and ask what's wrong. I ask them, how can I help you? To which the mom says, hey, this sheet is in Swedish. My son can't understand Swedish. We want one in English. I say to her, I'm sorry, but these are the only ones we have. But if you want, I can translate the riddles for your son. That might help him solve it. She says, no. I want my son to improve his reading, and this has to be in English. Why is this even in Swedish? We don't understand that. Again, I apologize and say, as we're in Sweden, most material is aimed first and foremost towards a Swedish audience. But your son can still enjoy more than half of the activities, as they're self-explanatory. The woman then starts telling me that that's discrimination, because everybody speaks the Swedish language. Of course, after that, she demands another waiter. So I wave towards my colleague, who's more seasoned and experienced. The colleague comes up and says, hi, how can I help? The woman then says, this person refuses to give my son this paper in English. My son doesn't understand Swedish. Print us an English one. My colleague tells her, I'm sorry, but we only have these in Swedish. But there is a bookstore right beside us that I know sells these kinds of riddles and questions in English. If you want to buy him something to entertain himself, the books aren't very expensive. The woman screaming, we shouldn't have to. The customer service of your place is awful. Why are they even in Swedish if everyone speaks English here? Now, the funny thing is that while this is happening, the son just sits there happily coloring a tiger. He's completely in his own world and seems to be having a good time. The rest of the night was fairly uneventful, but she did give me the evil stare every time I served them. The son managed to finish about 85% of the stuff on the paper, only leaving out the parts he couldn't understand, so I would say that he was satisfied. Guys, it's so funny that some people don't seem to understand that when they travel abroad, that they're guests in another country. Like, it's on you to respect the culture, language, laws, and try to adapt, and I really don't understand how some people get this frickin' entitled. So I've been reading stories on this sub for a really long time, and I just had my first real encounter with an entitled mother, and honestly, I'm still part shocked and part laughing about it. So a bit of backstory. My parents often ask me or my siblings to watch the house while they're gone, because they don't want to leave the dogs alone for extended periods of time. Usually my youngest sibling does it because she still lives at home, but she had to go to her friend's party or sleepover, so as a result, my parents asked me if I had time. So given I didn't have to work today, I obliged. My parents live in a large village, essentially. One that gives you the illusion of rural, but in reality, it's a 5 to 10 minute drive from several bigger cities. It's one of those villages that you want to leave as a 20-year-old, but you want to return the moment you have your own children. There's barely any crime, everyone knows everyone, and it's extremely calm, etc. However, it does have one issue. One of the towns close to the village is sort of notorious for scummy people. It's one of those towns that constantly manages to mess up its budget, and a good third of the population are lazy people. It's like a giant pimple on an otherwise blemishless area. As a result, when people from said town manage to get some money, they have the tendency to move to the village my parents live in. And as expected, they bring their entitled attitude with them. Our entitled neighbor is from this town. So on this day, I'm sitting in the garden, minding my own business, scrolling news sites, messaging friends, enjoying the nice weather, when I'm interrupted by the sound of a football, or soccer ball for North Americans, being shot against my parents' house and the neighbor's house, just thumping away. This continues on for a bit, and before long, the ball shoots right over the fence into my backyard, which I frankly didn't notice as I was on my phone. However, I'm quickly interrupted by my parents' dog growling, followed by the crack of wood and a thump from something large falling down. Well, I see the kid from 2 houses over, falling down, and my dog was about to charge, so I put my phone on the table, grabbed my dog by its collar, and put it inside. In the meantime, the kid's in the yard grabbing his ball and sprinting back to hop right over the fence that he broke by climbing over initially. The kid attempts to climb back over, cracking another plank at the bottom in his escape attempt, before I walk over and grab him by the back of his shirt collar. I say to the kid, "And where do you think you're going?" The kid's screaming at me to let him go, and I tell him, "No, I don't think so. You just broke this fence. So you can either calm down and we can go to your house to explain what happened, or I call the police." At this point, the kid starts flailing, trying to get himself loose. I grab the key from my pocket and open the fence door to walk to his house, with the kid still firmly held by his shirt collar. As we reach the door, I knock on it, and I'm greeted by the sound of a woman behind the door screaming, "You have a damn key, so use it." I can hear her complaining that now she has to get up, etc., but eventually the door opens, and at this point, from the corner of my eye, I could already see my neighbor standing behind his living room window, arms crossed and shaking his head. I then say to her, "Hello, miss, you..." Now, before I could get another word out, she says, "Hey, let go of my boy right now. What's wrong with you?" Now, I did let go, primarily because I was shocked about her reaction, and the kid starts sobbing like a 5-year-old, and he runs inside. At this point, the woman's screaming, "How dare you touch my son?" I tell her, well, if you would stop yelling and let me explain. "Your son just broke my parents' fence. He tried..." She then interrupts and says, "And that gives you the right to manhandle my son? Do you want to be arrested?" I say to her, "Ma'am, I didn't manhandle your son. I grabbed his shirt because he was trying to run away after he broke the fence. Now you can either calm down and we can come to an agreement how to handle this, or I can call the police and have them deal with it." Now at this point, she seemed to calm down a bit more, especially after I mentioned the word police. She then says to me that it's probably not even that bad. She then calls her son over and says, "Say sorry to the neighbor." The kid apologizes and bolts off again, not even giving me a chance to reply. The mother then says, "Well, that's done." She then attempts to close the door, but I quickly shake off my shock and put my foot in the door, pushing the door open again. And at this point, raising my voice substantially and saying, "Excuse me? Your son broke my parents' fence. It's all fine and dandy that he gave me a half-assed apology on your orders, but that still leaves the fact that he broke a 200-euro wooden fence that still needs to be replaced." The woman then tells me, "My son said sorry, so that's the end of it." At this point, the other neighbor has opened his door, leaning against the doorpost to listen. Now, just a little note, he does dislike them a lot, and he's had a lot of problems with them since they moved in. Once again, our entitled mom attempts to close the door on me, but I still have my foot in the doorway, so all she's doing is giving my toes a thrashing. I then say to her, "Look, this is the last time I..." Now at this point, her hulking 5'5", muscle mass of a husband appears, visibly upset and annoyed. He says to me, "And what's the problem here?" His wife tells him that she's getting yelled at and that I manhandled their son. So after hearing that, the door swings open, and as you may imagine, my legs are shaking at this mighty example of masculinity threatening to do me harm. Gosh, I've never been so terrified in my life. I then say to him, "Look dude, I didn't do anything to your son, and the only one who's been yelling this entire time is your wife. Now your son broke my parents' fence, so we do need to figure out a solution, or we can get the police involved." He then tells me, "You have no proof of what happened, so go fix it yourself, and if I ever see you..." At this point, the neighbor chimes in and says, "I saw everything. Your son broke the fence and he tried to run away. Also, your wife's assaulted the neighbor with the door." You can clearly spot a devious smirk on the neighbor's face. He likely didn't see anything, but like I said, he absolutely hates them. And this was him taking revenge, I think. At the same time, I can see the woman and her husband visibly losing all the bravado they had left. I then say to him, "So as I was saying, the fence costs 200 euros. And if you threaten me again, I'll have to defend myself." Now at this point, I was honestly sort of hoping that he would lose his stuff and attack me. Honestly, I don't handle threats very well, and I have quite a temperament myself, so as you may imagine, I was seething at this point. But of course, he backs off. He told me that he'd get the money tomorrow, and I reminded him if I or my parents didn't get it by tomorrow evening, I would be sure to call the police. So the next day passed without any real excitement, apart from my parents returning. It went from morning to afternoon, and soon daylight was starting to fade, and it was nearing dinner time. So basically, I'd already informed my parents as to what happened on the phone, and I showed them the fence, and my dad was unhappy, to say the least. Like I said, there's some history that's already there, and these neighbors in question have been nothing but an annoyance to the entire street. But it seemed this time that they took it a step too far in my dad's book. Regardless, I explained to them that they agreed to pay up for the fence before the evening, so he should expect them to be at the door anytime, with 250 euros agreed upon. Lo and behold, at the last possible moment, when I was ready to call police, Dumb and Dumber decide to show up. So my dad opens the door with me right behind him. The woman says, "We're here to talk about what happened. How dare you think your son can talk to us like that?" To which my dad responds, no, you're here to pay for damages to my fence. Besides that, I want absolutely nothing to do with you people. It was at this point yet again that my knees nearly gave out as her husband appeared from behind her. His gaze angered, his expression sour, and his breath calm and paced, and he says, "And what's that supposed to mean?" My dad says to him, "That means that I want you to pay for the damages your son did to my fence, and then I want to go back to not speaking with you." Now again, that might sound harsh, but like I said, not the first rodeo with these people. The woman then says, "No, we're here to talk about how rude your son was." I then say to her, "Was I rude before or after you yelled at me and slammed your door against my foot? Or perhaps when your husband made his hilarious attempt to threaten me?" At this point, my neighbor walks over to our front lawn, peeking over the hedge. My dad says again, "Look, you're just gonna pay for damages or we're gonna have to call the police. I'm in no mood to deal with you people any longer than I'm absolutely forced to deal with you." The woman is still screaming that she wants me to apologize for how I behaved. And at this point, I'm just done with these people. I'm certainly not gonna say sorry for... I'm not even sure what I was supposed to say sorry for in the first place. So I grab my phone and start searching up the non-emergency line. I say to them, "Right, I'm just gonna call police and we'll have them deal with it." At this point, I can see the dad's bravado disappear once again. It was like he was deflating, for the lack of a better word. And at this point, he just walks over to my dad, pulls the money from his pocket, and hands it to him. My dad then asked him, "Was that truly so hard?" My neighbor with the biggest smile on his face yells over, "Sure seems like it was. Some people just don't know how to behave." Now I could see the woman keeping herself back from absolutely blowing up. For real though, these people do suck, and I hope you enjoyed. Hey, at least they paid up, right? Like, I was honestly expecting the two neighbors to escalate this to the point where the cops were called and they'd get taken to jail, like a lot of the stories I read on here. So this happened about a year and a half ago, before the whole COVID thing. I had moved into a new home a few months ago, and one of the reasons I especially liked this home was because of the nice lots and close parks. Anyways, one day a few months after I moved in, I noticed that there was a big piece of dog poop on my front lawn. I looked around and I didn't see anyone walking their dog. There was quite a few neighbors that had dogs, and I figured that one of them had just forgotten to pick up after their dog. So I got a plastic bag, throw the poop in the trash, and I thought nothing of it. 2 days later, there was another dog poop on my lawn. This time, I see a little boy walking down the street walking his dog. Now, I wasn't sure it was him, and his mom seemed kind of nice, so I thought I'd see if it happened again. A few days later, I was about to leave the house when I saw the same boy with his dog dropping a steaming pile of poop on my lawn. This time, I took out my phone and recorded the video. After I got back, I went to his house. I say to his mom, "Hello, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting something, but I'm just wondering if we could talk about your son and his dog." The mom says, "Of course, what's up?" I tell her, "I noticed your son was walking your dog outside my house, and I saw that the dog, pooped on my lawn, and he never picked it up. He carries bags when he walks the dog, and I'd appreciate it if you could ask him to pick up after the dog from now on." Now this is when the mom switches into full entitled Karen mode, and she says, "That's nonsense. My son would never do anything like that. Ask anyone. He's the most well-behaved child in this neighborhood." I say to her, "I'm sorry, miss. I'm not saying your son's a bad child or anything. I just want him to pick up after his dog. I even have a video of him walking away." She quickly tells me that she'll talk to him, and she slams the door in my face. Now I thought that would be the end of things, but boy was I wrong. I didn't see the boy walking his dog outside my house for a week after that. But around 10 days later, I see another pile of poop on my lawn. Now I'd had enough. Now, I went back to their house to nip it in the bud before it happens again. I say to her, "Miss, this is really unacceptable. You said that you'd talk to your son, and now there's another pile of poop on my lawn." The woman says, "Listen, my son said he'd never do it again, and he didn't." At this point, the kid comes to the door, and she asked him, "Did the dog poop on this man's lawn again?" Now the kid's obviously lying through his teeth and says, "No, never." The mom then looks at me and says, "That should be enough. Now don't come back again." So I was having dinner at my new neighbor's house and the topic came up. My neighbor told me that pretty much everyone hated this lady. She was always borrowing stuff and claiming she never took them, filling other people's trash cans instead of paying for special pickup. You get the idea. Now I finally broke when her dog pooped not once, not twice, but 3 times on my lawn in the same day. So I got an epic idea. This time, I used a plastic bag to pick up the poop, but instead of throwing it in the trash, I kept it in my backyard. So for the next week, I collected poop from the lawn like a scientist, bagging every one. I'm sure if someone saw me, they would have thought I was crazy. So after a week, I had around 4 bags of the dog's poop in my backyard. On Friday night, I go to her mailbox and absolutely caked it in the dog crap. I got the sides, the top, the bottom, I completely covered the thing. The next day, I was treated to the sight of her husband hosing the mailbox off with a look of utter disgust on his face. So after that, her kid mysteriously stopped walking the dog in front of my house. Guys, that's such an epic petty revenge. And hey, some people gotta learn the hard way, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. OP's boss steals his pay and gets his business shut down. It's such a crazy story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.